Hour one. Bing, bing, bong, bong. We're live. It's the Beck Scrum with Michael and Sam and Sess. And Michael was in first. Michael, how are things going with you?
Good. So I was just doing some work on a MOOC. Some from Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz.
Sorry, say again. You're doing some work on a MOOC.
Yeah, from the University of California, Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah.
Bayesian statistics. If you're interested, Sam, I would recommend it. It's a pretty good MOOC, and it's not like the problems aren't extremely difficult, and it's a good overview of the subject. Yeah, and you can take it for free on Coursera. Basically, like you don't get a cert, but you can get the feedback and everything from the quizzes and stuff, which are decent.
Definitely very interesting. I just don't. I guess unless I was being paid to do it, it would. Unfortunately, don't have the time. It was. Well, you were asking before about being neural networks. I'm nostalgic for that period of my 20s where I didn't have all sorts of commitments and mouths to feed. There's so much wonderful stuff available now that I don't have time to look at. But yes, oh well, good to know. Anything else on your mind? Anything blocking you? Any plans?
No, that's it.
All right, good stuff. Sess, how are things going with you?
Things are great. I've been investigating on my way to implement the recurring features on events. Yeah, hopefully during the weekend I'll get started on the implementation. Yeah, that's all.
All right, great stuff. That's on local support. Good show.
Yep.
Thanks, Sess. Excellent. Yeah, so on that note, I've just been pairing with Brent on local support. About pulling in new organizations from the Charity Commission. Something that we had always originally planned to do, and it's taken us 5 years to get there, but we're finally getting close to doing it. Before that, we had the Deep Learning Mob, which was fun, although I was a bit behind. But yeah, I got my 4-layer nets working over lunch, and we'll carry on there. Yes. What's happening? Anything? Blocks. I'm still completely underwater in terms of admin tasks and things. I guess we're getting there. I've got my karate soon. Just going to try and clear up another load of admin stuff for the rest of the day. Yeah, we've got our AGM conference coming up soon. In like 12 days or so, it's Tuesday week. That's about the size of it. I think that's Scrum done. Is there anything else that we need to sort out? I guess not. Go on.
No. But I was going to say, do you, for the data processing stuff?
Yes.
I know you already have an attorney looking at like the privacy policy on the website. Probably cost a lot more to get them to like draft something, right?
Yeah.
For the processing stuff.
Yes.
Appropriate for a volunteer framework.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's an interesting question about how much we kind of need in place. I mean, the tightening up of the data regulation. I mean, we've got the situation of volunteers all around the world, so crossing all of these international boundaries that are important to the EU, and then having access to potentially having access to data for whichever in several different projects that just as websites do. When you log in and create a user account, it creates data for you. And it's the funny thing is, I was at this presentation on GDPR like 2 weeks back, and the implication is actually this GDPR, the change is actually only very minor in terms of it being about the way in which you obtain consent, but it actually underlines, and I guess it also increases the amount that people can be fined. It's all like existing regulations that have been in place for you know, several years, and so there's not. Yeah, I mean it's unclear. I mean, it's things like you know, you've got these cookie pop-ups, and so a lot of people have added new versions that allow you to, you know, it's really unclear.
I mean, it feels like they made a lot of us, like, it's kind of weird, like, that the EU has done this, like, just speaking as an American.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the US were to do something like this,
Mm-hmm.
which they probably wouldn't do it, but if they were to do something like this, I imagine that, like, before it would get through, like, Congress,
Mm-hmm.
there would be restrictions on it. It would, like, only apply to, like, companies of a certain size or something, because it seems like they just brought a hammer in and they're like, everyone that collects data has to, like, have all these processes in place, and it seems kind of not necessarily realistic. Like, it's like they're just kind of like saying, like, well, screw you.
I don't know.
You have the resources.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like that they're not. I don't know that they're necessarily thinking about the impact on the organizations. They're focusing on, like, the impact on the individuals and trying to protect the individuals. And,
right. I would argue that, like, our data has such, like, little impact on people. I don't know. It doesn't seem like very impactful data. Like, whether somebody showed up in the Scrum or not seems okay. Like, who cares?
Well, indeed. And I think it's... Go on.
You know what I mean? It's not like we're processing some kind of sensitive data here. But I guess they've just decided to define all data. Just and then when you do that, it seems kind of ridiculous that you don't have in place, like, the impact on the organization. Like, does the organization even have the scale and the size and the budget to conform to all these rules?
Well, indeed not. But then it's what's you know, they haven't actually, like, with this latest legislation, hasn't actually changed any of the rules from before, right? So you can say it sort of feels like a hammer because it feels like there's been a big change now, and suddenly companies have got to do a lot, or an organization has got to do a lot more. Actually, not much has actually changed in terms of the legislation. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
they have data processing things. Like, you have to have all these contracts now. They have the consent thing.
I think the thing is, you always had to have them.
I don't think you had to have. People are talking about repapering. Like, they didn't. It wasn't a requirement before, or it wasn't to this degree.
Well, this is the thing, is that I'm in my discussion with specialists on GDPR and the lawyers, is like, actually you were required to have all these things, but people weren't.
Just like the entire world just ignored it.
Well, it's still the thing before that was already in place, which is called the PECR, which is like Electronic Communications Regulation, and the Data Privacy Act and so on. These were EU things,
right?
And so
like, there's, like, a whole lot of companies that had to, like, just spend a lot of money repapering everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But partly they're doing it not because of new legislation per se, but because the existing legislation has been ever so slightly tweaked, and at the same time, the amount that you can be fined has jumped.
Right.
So suddenly, it's like people are even more incentivized to take it seriously. I mean, I think the reality is that, you know, small organizations are not going to encounter issues unless they explicitly receive complaints, which is actually very unlikely. I mean, like, for the whole cookie thing, you know, and people, like, whatever, no one has ever complained about going to a website and saying, oh, they put a cookie on me and they didn't ask for consent. Right. And, you know, like, hundreds of thousands of hours have been spent putting it all in. Every year, hundreds of thousands of hours are sort of lost by people clicking, okay, yeah, you can have a cookie, you can have a cookie, whatever, what have you, to effectively, I don't know, no impact whatsoever. I mean, so yeah, so I think the challenge then is for smaller organizations is to know, how much does one have to do? How much should one do? therein almost that's even more difficult than if it was precisely clear what was the
Right.
effective set of things
It's
that you would
it's just very interesting because, like I said, in the U.S., I can't imagine this being passed ever, especially with the scope that it has, or like any incorporated entity. I can't imagine that like flying. Like it would never happen.
No. Although interestingly,
most of our laws, almost all of our laws are premised on like, I don't know, like a lot of stuff is like if you have 50 employees or more, then all of a sudden you come under.
Right.
Like it goes up with the scale of the company.
Yeah, indeed so. Yeah, then as far as I can tell, it's not prefaced that way for this EU legislation. I mean, yes. I mean, I think it's I kind of appreciate the intention to try and protect people from evil, or unethical organizations doing nefarious things with their data. Yeah, in terms of like the reality of how it impacts Agile Ventures and all the associated projects, and how we can turn it into a good. I mean, got to look on the bright side of different things, but yeah, how we can turn it into a good thing, I'm not sure. Anyway, I guess I will go and work on that. Yeah, fascinating times. Good to see you both. Bye for now.
All right.
Bye.